When you look closely at the human eye, you aren't actually seeing the pupil or the iris directly. You are looking through a living, transparent tissue resting right at the front of the eye, the cornea. It is the most powerful lens in your body. While the internal crystalline lens fine-tunes your focus, the cornea is responsible for roughly 2/3 of your eye's total optical power. This 2D cross-section illustrates the principle of geometric optics. Light rays enter parallel to each other, and the precise, curved shape of the cornea physically bends or refracts that light so it converges perfectly onto the retina at the back of the eye. Because it serves as the primary refractive surface, the math is entirely unforgiving. The slightest deviation in the cornea's curvature or a microscopic loss of transparency instantly blurs the image. But a solid piece of tissue cannot achieve true optical clarity on its own. The cornea relies on a constantly renewed liquid layer resting directly on its surface. Looking closely at this magnified cross-section, we can see the tear film is actually stacked into 3 distinct fluid layers covering the cellular surface: an outer lipid layer, a middle aqueous layer, and an inner mucus layer. Each of these layers has a specific biological origin. Tiny meibomian glands in the eyelids secrete the oily lipid layer to prevent evaporation. The lacrimal gland above the eye pumps out the watery aqueous layer. Finally, goblet cells in the conjunctiva produce the mucus layer to anchor the water directly to the eye. Without this constant 3-part liquid refresh, the surface of the cornea dries out. The smooth geometric curve collapses, the tissue scars, and the entire optical system fails. If we plunge deeply beneath that liquid tear film, we will enter the actual cellular architecture of the human cornea itself. The topmost layer is the epithelium. It acts as a rugged, rapidly regenerating barrier to keep dust, bacteria, and other outside contaminants out of the delicate interior. Beneath that shield lies the stroma. This is the thickest part of the cornea, making up nearly 90% of its volume, entirely responsible for giving the eye its rigid shape. In this microscopic top-down view, you can see the unique physical composition of the stroma. It is made of collagen fibrils interspersed with specialized cells called keratinocytes, all locked into a perfectly uniform alignment. This strict geometric spacing is how the body solves a complex problem in physical optics. Because the fibers are packed so precisely, light waves pass cleanly through the gaps without scattering. It is the exact reason why this highly dense tissue is completely transparent, while the collagen in your skin is opaque. However, this creates a biological paradox. The stroma has no blood vessels. It relies entirely on surrounding fluid for its nutrients. But if it absorbs too much of that fluid, the collagen fibers swell, push apart, and the eye goes cloudy. The solution lies at the very back of the cornea, in a single, incredibly fragile layer of cells known as the endothelium. Water naturally leaks upward into the stroma. To counter this, the endothelium acts as a relentless pump, forcing droplets back down. But these cells cannot regenerate. If they die off, the pump fails. Fluid builds up, and the tissue becomes waterlogged and opaque. Corneal clarity is never a passive state. It is a lifelong microscopic battle requiring constant cellular energy to literally pump the tissue dry. When the structural integrity of the stroma degrades, the results are severe. This is exactly what happens in a progressive disease called keratoconus. This profile animation shows the physical mechanics of the disease. The stroma begins to thin out at the center. Weakened, the tissue can no longer hold its shape against the natural pressure inside the eye, bulging forward into an irregular cone. Clinicians map this structural failure using corneal topography, a diagnostic tool that measures the exact size, shape, and severity of the steepening curvature. As the dome warps, the geometric optics fail. Incoming light scatters violently across the back of the eye, generating severe astigmatism, multiple ghost images, and intense light bursts. Because the physical surface is ruined, traditional glasses cannot correct the distortion. Standard soft contact lenses are equally useless here. They simply drape over the eye, adopting the exact shape of the deformed cone underneath. To fix advanced keratoconus, clinicians have to install a mechanical replacement, the rigid gas-permeable scleral lens. Looking at this cross-section, you see how it works. The massive diameter of the rigid lens allows it to vault completely over the diseased cornea. It anchors securely onto the white of the eye, the sclera, while trapping a restorative reservoir of tears underneath. By trapping that liquid layer behind a perfectly smooth artificial dome, the damaged tissue is entirely bypassed. It is a mechanical solution to a biological failure, proving that clear human vision relies absolutely on the unbroken geometry of the cornea.